What excites me about high-res audio is that possibly for the first time in recorded music history is the fan has an opportunity to listen to what the artist is doing in the studio. The artist's original intention, their vision for their music. You know, we always talk about fidelity being truth to the original performance or truth to the original recordings. High-res audio literally gives us the opportunity to introduce absolute fidelity to the fan in a way that they've never been able to experience before. If you think about the history of the recording formats, you know, starting with vinyl and going to the CD and then to lossless and then lossy compression algorithms, they were all compromised either by the actual physical media format itself, the carrier of the music, or by constraints to bandwidth and storage, and compromises needed to be made to the full fidelity of the actual recording. In the case of vinyl, you know, there are EQ choices that need to be made so the needle doesn't jump, for instance, or so that the sort of high frequencies can be captured as close to the center of the disc as possible, the length of a side, for instance. So decisions need to be made at mastering to accommodate for that and to accommodate for the limitations of the format. Although we sometimes really enjoy the sound of the format, like vinyl personally, I really enjoy the way it sounds, but that, in terms of absolute fidelity to what was on the original tape or in the original performance, there are compromises that need to be made to manage to the carrier. And then similarly with CD, when the CD came out 1982, 1983, you know, under the moniker Perfect Sound Forever, well, what did perfect mean to us in that period of time? You know, the things that annoyed us about recordings in 1982, 1983, in the early 80s was tape hiss and pops and clicks and scratches and, you know, all this stuff that generally tends to live in the upper register in the high frequencies. And so, you know, you can hear in the original reissues of CD where, you know, maybe some heavy-handed denoising was used to remaster because the expectation of the fan was that they weren't going to hear this sound in this new digital format. Unfortunately, though, at the time, the denoising technology also happened to remove what, you know, is emotional information, you know, resonance, sibilance, you know, and you can actually hear that. Fast forward to the digital era and the a la carte era, where, you know, bandwidth was limited, storage cost a lot of money, and the consumer had a relentless demand for convenience. So in order to satisfy that, the industry had to embrace technology like lossy and lossless compression. In the case of lossy compression, the technologies are literally removing sound, information that is theoretically not important to the listening experience, you know, frequencies above and below the human hearing range, and in fact some frequencies in the human hearing range. But almost by definition, actually by definition, lossy formats are not high fidelity formats. And so, you know, we're in 2016, the 60th anniversary of Capitol Studios, and high-resolution audio is now available to the average consumer. You know, the many manufacturers with the biggest names you can think of making mobile phones that can produce high-resolution audio, mobile devices that can produce high-resolution audio, where literally bit for bit, the audio that we are creating here in the studio and the performances we're capturing can be listened to by the consumer for arguably the first time in recorded music history. And that's a pretty exciting thing. The other tremendous advantage to high-resolution audio is preserving the recordings we're making today, and also the recordings that were made many years ago onto analog formats that ultimately will not be with us in 50 or 100 years. It gives us the opportunity to take all of the information, warts and all, from the original tapes, many of which are the crown jewels of post-war popular culture, 20th century, you know, society, and it allows us to take to lovingly bring that analog information into the digital realm where we're capturing as much information as today's studio technology can afford. I'm very passionate about making sure that we are preserving that to the highest fidelity possible, because, you know, there are future generations that we're going to want to enjoy the music in the way that we enjoy it in the studio today. The idea behind lossy compression is to pull out information that your ear doesn't hear. But you know, the human body, the human physiology is a very complex machinery. You know, we respond to molecules moving in the air, whether we can hear them or whether we can't hear them. So, if using fidelity as our benchmark for the philosophy of how we should be applying, you know, the artist's craft to, you know, the formats that the consumers are listening to, you know, sounds above and below the human hearing range are captured. We capture that information. It exists in the studio, and human physiology does respond to those sounds. And when we don't have the same kind of constraints that maybe we used to when the internet was young and when bandwidth was expensive and when storage was expensive, you know, we don't have those constraints anymore. So we have the opportunity to represent the entire frequency range that today's studio technology can capture back to the consumer. And I think we should take advantage of that opportunity. Again, using fidelity as our benchmark. Capitol Studios has been making great records for 60 years. And we are unique in the fact that we're a studio that's actually owned by a music company as well. So if you think about what that means for us, is that we have the opportunity not just to record great music here, but to deliver great music to the consumer via our record labels. And so we've always tried to think of ourselves as something special for the artists. So we would like to extend what's special and unique about Capitol Studios and the records that we make here and the artists and their craft that is recorded here as far out to the fan as possible, maintaining as much fidelity as possible. So we're very excited about partnership with partners like UE that can help us carry that sound all the way literally to the eardrum of the fan. I mean, I can't think of anything that's more exciting to me in that what we're making here can be listened to in a high fidelity environment, you know, especially considering, you know, what the choices that people are making every day for convenience sake, what they're listening to, it doesn't do the artist's original intention and their great creative work and the passions that they spill out in the recording studios here and that we take such care to capture. You know, there's a lot of intermediation that happens in between what we do and what the fan is listening to. And we'd like to see that, so what's special about the recording studio here and what the artist does here extend all the way to the ears of the fan.